Hello everybody, this is Insane Monster, and this is part 4 of What If Deku Had Anti-Venom. Now, after this, the next two What Ifs will be the two Luffy One Piece What Ifs that were also chosen along with this one by the winner of the What If Lotto. After that, the all What Ifs on my channel that only have a single part will be given a second part, whether they only have part 1 or they only have part 0 so far. So, hope you enjoy. Hit it.
What you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do? This is just for us now.
Alright, now when we left off, Aizawa was explaining the whole thing with the sports festival and detailing that it's a good way to get yourselves known out there, that to get pro heroes to take a look at you for internships, as well as the possibility of students gaining entry into the hero course or being kicked out of the hero course. It all depends on their performance. After that, the students kind of talk about training and such. Some of the symbiote students ended up training with other ones, as well as some of the non-symbiote students, so that their classmates can bulk up with their training. For instance, Ojiro with his symbiote Sever are training pretty hard with Kirishima using his hardening quirk, trying to get it to a finer degree for when the festival comes. Though at this point, they were straining from using the blades to harm him. As for some of the other ones, they're practicing in the event of going up against the symbiote, since they know that in the past, the end phase of each sports festival for UA was a tournament, though it somewhat varied depending on what kind of tournament it was going to be. So they just kind of had to train for all around. As for Deku and Toga, they went full on combat in the training area with their symbiotes and quirks. At this point, Toga was really working on her own quirk, trying to figure out what exactly Toxin was talking about, a hidden potential in it. Deku was helping and trying to figure out what kind of potential of transforming into somebody might be. Though he had a theory, he wasn't sure if it was going to be correct, so he kept it to himself, with Anti-Venom remarking that it is most likely possible. So they asked some of their classmates to donate some blood to try to train Toga's actual quirk. Some of them were a little uneasy about it, others were okay with it since they saw them as her classmate and such. But still kind of weird asking your classmates for blood for training. After turning in the multiple versions of her classmates, Toxin just stated, "You know, it seems kind of odd that you would go just take in their blood to become them when you can still become them using me." Toga just replies with, "Yeah, but then I can't train my quirk, now can I? And how am I supposed to figure out what that hidden part of my quirk is whenever when I can't train it and just use you instead?" Toxin just replies with, "You have a point. Though, given my powers mixed in with yours, any blood you seem to ingest seems to be cataloged within my genetic memory." He asked, "What exactly does that mean?" He says that he can't access anything pertinent to it, though working together in combination with your quirk and him as a symbiote, she's, she could be able to use her power to mimic them at will without requiring any more blood. Though, doing this, he remarks that he feels the hidden potential of her quirk getting more riled up, so that they should train this a bit more. He agreed, and they tried it over and over. As for combat scenarios, Deku went off every now and then to practice their new ability for him and Anti-Venom to split apart for a short amount of time to fight as two individuals, quickly finding out that Anti-Venom, even while split apart from Deku, still had One for All in him, as well as Deku having it in him himself at the same time. They're not exactly sure if the percentage is split or if they just have the same amount. But they use it as a method for training against one another in hand to hand combat. To get used to fighting like this in case they have to fight with somebody with an incredible strength enhancing quirk at some point, especially if they have to go against something like that Nomu from USJ attack again. And they do cause a little bit of damage to the training ground. As for the teachers, they're getting everything set up, and while in the office, Cementos is asking Aizawa about what it's like having somebody as a most simplest way to put it, body mate. Basically a roommate, but instead of sharing an apartment, you're sharing a body. He just remarks it's freaking weird. He keeps talking and remarking things inside my head, and every now and then it's like I can see his reflection in the mirror instead of my own. You know how weird that is? Though I gotta admit I can't complain. My bones and and the damage to my bones were healed up pretty good, though now I have goop or whatever, or the symbiote as my new arm. So there is that. Cementos just remarks that he finds it impressive that it can just be that it can not only enhance his abilities, but it can also be able to be used as a type of prosthetic, which Venom popped out, remarking, "It's actually quite simple. I've act before I got forcibly bonded to that Nomu creature and had that collar placed on to keep me in line. My previous host was a man known as uh, Flash. He actually lost his both of his legs, and I was effectively his prosthetics. So it isn't really a new concept for me." But Cemento's remarking that is pretty interesting, though he's not sure how well he would handle having something sharing his body with Midnight walks in on that statement and says, "It isn't that bad, though I suppose it depends on the symbiote, since they can be influenced by a previous host." Though I suppose, given that Nomu thing and the description he gave, that Venom gave of it, there wasn't really a mind left to put any real psychological imprint on Venom to affect him, was there? Which Venom chimed in, saying, "No, not really. That thing was completely mindless. It was subjected to all sorts of experiments. Though that's only from what I can tell from how the body seemed to be modified. The brain and the whole psyche of the thing was so heavily damaged I couldn't actually see any of its memories. Whatever kind of mind it did have, it was completely destroyed to be able to make it into a living puppet weapon. And it was also designed to be a weapon against All Might, which All Might was just sitting there listening, stating, "What exactly was the plan?" Venom stated that their plan was originally to use that Nomu to wear you down and pin you, while that Warpgate villain was to put half of your body through one of his gates and shut it, ultimately cutting you in half. The Nomu was just meant to hold you still while they did it. Which All Might just finds that really unnerving. Then Venom continues stating that once they found a symbiote, there was some that they considered, but they ultimately put me in the Nomu to try to make it even more formidable, hoping to enhance its capabilities further to make it a better weapon against you. Though it is unclear whether or not it would actually have worked, since it didn't happen. Which, why I was under the impression from Aizawa's memory that you were supposed to be there. What happened? All Might just kind of got nervous and stated, "Well, I'm not quite used to being a teacher yet. I got a little uh overdid it on actual hero work instead of focusing on teaching, so I ended up getting to UA late. And by the time I got here, I ended up getting lectured by Nezu, and yeah, there was tea involved, which Venom stated enough said, since he remembers Aizawa's memories of Nezu and how he gets when tea's involved and lecturing. Which then All Might asked, "Which reminds me, you said that there were other symbiotes where you were being held, yes? What others were there?" Venom stated that he doesn't really know that which ones they were. They were testing out techniques to try to block the ability to sense our own kind, which is how they were able to get into UA to get the files they needed for your schedule, which they were just kind of frustrated by. So, and he continues with that he knows that there's two other symbiotes that were there with him besides him and Carnage, though the only ones that are undetermined at this point on where they are or a few symbiotes that were actually forcibly spawned from him, and one that was spawned from Carnage himself. Which All Might stated, "Is that one going to be a problem?" Venom remarked with, "Not really. The one spawned from Carnage was actually good at nature, though that symbiote is a bit of an odd one. Due to certain circumstances, it became something of what you would refer to as well, a cyborg symbiote. Quite unusual, but it was that symbiote is able to mimic any technology. It can use computers just by connecting with it, it can mimic different forms of technological weaponry. Even it could even gain information from data, schematics, and blueprints and mimic it. Upon her, upon that symbiote's capture, it was already able to download multiple information from different groups and such that had data on all sorts of high technological weaponry, which ultimately led to that one being captured. The symbiote's name goes by Scorn. Besides that, besides that symbiote, there the ones that are left as unknowns on whether they're still alive or if they found a host would be Riot, who spawned Sickle that is currently bonded to that Ojiro kid. There's also Phage, Agony, as well as Lasher. But there's no telling where they are or where they might be. There's and if they ended up bonding to somebody with, let's say, a less than pleasant personality and mental uh, stability, it could be quite bad. That's exactly how Carnage ended up the way he is. After being spawned from me, as unlucky as it was, the first person he bonded to was a psychopathic serial killer, which is why he can cause such bloodshed without a second thought. How his current host is dealing with this, and how the host, this Tomura person, has caused any influence onto Carnage is currently unclear. Though I wouldn't recommend trying to see how crazed he is now. With All Might stating, point taken. So they just end it there. As they continue and it gets closer to the day of the UA Sports Festival, two of the symbiotes of the students stated that they felt something familiar yet odd. These two symbiotes were Screen, who is currently bonded to Ibarai, I hope I said that name correctly, and Sleeper, who's bonded to Momo. They stated that to their host that they felt a very familiar sensation, but at the same time it felt slightly off to the point where they're not sure what it is. They're wondering if it had something to do with their quirk gene, given that it's something that they never had to deal with a host, so they're not sure how exactly it's changed them. So they just put it on hold for a bit, though they're becoming a little bit sluggish as time passes by with their training, and they noticed. Until the day of the sports festival. On that day, Izuku was asked to step up as the class representative who got the highest score on the hero test. And once he got up there, he stated that he hopes that everyone will push themselves as far as they can to show everyone here that they deserve to be in UA and that the future heroes are going to do their best at even in something like a even as something like a game or something. He's he's just kind of fumbling a little bit, being nervous, with Anti Venom saying, "Stop being nervous. You're just talking." With his mind replying to Anti Venom with, "Yes, and I'm talking over with thousands of people watching me, not to mention even more on live television." So he just wraps it up and steps off with Toga patting him on the back telling him it's okay to be nervous, with Bakugo stating, "Frickin' nerd! You should have just told him outright that you were going to win. That's what I would have done." With Toga telling him, "Yes, and then you would, yes, and that's how he could have pissed everyone off," which is what he didn't want to do. As he remarks what Bakugo did whenever all the other students in UA came to their class to scout them out, with just making Bakugo angry. So they just continue with the rolling where it is announced about the obstacle course, which will be a beginning preliminary. Once it starts, Todoroki hurries up and freezes the ground, though doesn't really. A lot of the same students that end up getting loose and all that still get loose, though the ones that are have symbiotes are easily get out of it and use their tendrils to stab through the ice into the ground to get right through without any problems. Though those without symbiotes whose quirk can still let them get through, like Mineta bouncing on his balls, still happens, and Mineta still gets knocked by one of the robots at the first obstacle. Todoroki still freezes over the robots, and the symbiote students attack the others, quickly dispatching the smaller ones, and going over the larger ones that are just falling right down onto them, using their attacks to destroy the robots at their joints to cause them to just fall down. As for the really deep fall with the, I guess, plateau connected by ropes, it was pretty easy for them. Some of them just went on using the tendrils to jump, others used webs to swing between the pillars and then swing up to the end. So the lineup for first place is a little bit closer, but still pretty similar to as in canon. Though this time Toga's right on the tail of the others. Knowing that he'd have no choice, seeing as his symbiote classmates are using the tendrils to stab into the ground around the bombs to get through it faster, he hurries up and freezes the ground, giving him a solid path that won't blow up on him. Which, coming towards the end, where Deku was kind of coming up on the end, he tells Anti-Venom to use the smaller tendrils to stab into the ground underneath them where the bombs are, which he picks up on what he's saying and blows up the bombs underneath the ones that were about to get past the minefield, which they then use one for all the in their tendrils to slingshot Deku clean past them. He does still get number one place, with Todoroki and Bakugo getting second and third, considering that Bakugo used his explosions to go over the exploding mines, and Todoroki used his ice to propel himself, basically, to get away from the bombs, while the others were somewhat distracted by it. And fourth was Toga, and a lot of the other ones still end up in the lineup, though unlike in canon, they actually opened up a lot more spots to be given to people who were able to get in. So yeah, instead of the normal 42 openings like in canon, they opened it up as a kind of gap, since multiple of their beginning of the first years have symbiotes bonded to them. So they figured that it might be fair to give them this, just to give some people a chance. As for the pairing up for the cavalry battle, this time we still have the combination of Ochako, uh, Deku, Tokuyami, and but this time instead of Hachime, it ends up being Toga. The idea was to use the symbiote tendrils as a way to, in combination with Dark Shadow, so that they're covered all over from attacks. If necessary, Ochako would make themselves 0G so that they could slam onto the ground and uh, more or less float away. As for releasing themselves from this, they would just use sorry, they would use the tendrils for landing, which May actually finds this interesting and wondering, and also has heard that those kinds of works that have been popping up recently, like them, are able to incorporate different tech into their selves. Being curious about this and keeping a note to talk to them later about incorporating some of her babies into their symbiotes. So once it begins, it goes straight for Deku, which they which Toga is using her tendrils to keep them off of their back, which is pretty useful. Though once the ground ends up turning into some kind of mush where they're sinking, they hurry up and use the tendrils to rip themselves out with their teammates to get away. As they're running, Dark Shadow is doing his best to swipe at any passing teams to try to get their headbands. Their strategy was to use the tendrils as the main focus to keep people's attention on them, on Deku and Toga, while Tokuyami and Dark Shadow were to try to swipe some headbands. So that was their basic strategy for the idea. And same as in canon, that copy guy, Monoma, is still messing with Bakugo, pissing him off. And obviously, that just leads to more problems, with making him way more angrier. With Todoroki working with Momo, they're trying to get at them using a combination of the creation quirk and his ice to attack with ice right at them. Though that didn't really slow the symbiotes down, with Toxin popping out of Toga, yelling at Todoroki, stating that the cold doesn't really bother us, as he just remarks in his head that, I mean, we're a space sparing alien species that can travel from one planet to another by hitching rides on asteroids. So even the coldness of the void of space doesn't really bother us. His ice isn't much of a problem. Though that doesn't mean that it isn't a problem when he gets serious, from what I can tell. Koga just remarked, well, yeah, he has two quirks and they're both powerful. But other than that, once everything is said and done, the lineup is still pretty similar to it as in canon, and Ojiro and others state that they're dropping out. And Deku is surprised by this, considering, with Sickle stating to Ojiro, what exactly happened to us? I barely remember. I don't even remember what we did during that whole cavalry battle. Ojiro remarks to Sickle, yeah, I don't get it either. That guy, all we did is answer a question and then everything just went blank. With Sickle remarking, we should probably stay away from him from now. At this time, Todoroki noticed something about Momo, and Kendo noticed something about Abara, that they were both looking a lot more tired than usual. Like, really tired. They checked on them and stated that there was something up with them, that they weren't sure what was going on. As they just went off to take a break, and like in canon, uh, Kaminari and Mineta tricked the girls into getting into cheerleading outfits, which afterwards the class of UA who had symbiotes, which were Toga, Momo, and Jiro, used their tendrils to just smack the ever living hell out of Mineta, which, while laying on the ground with blood, with some blood coming out of his nose and his face swollen up, he just gives a thumbs up saying, "Worth it?" With Kaminari saying, "Seriously?" Which then is followed up by Jiro cracking her knuckles, saying, "You were also in on this, right, Kaminari?" With Kaminari just thinking, "Someone please save me." Now, things go as in canon for the little games for the ones that didn't get into the tournament. But we start off with the first round of the tournament where Deku is facing uh, Shinso. But before that, Shinso gave them a warning not to answer any of their questions, which he's not really sure about. Which Anti-Venom remarks that it might be some type of mind controlling quirk or something that can give him control over another person. Something like that is problematic, though it depends on whether he takes over their body or their mind. Deku asked, what exactly is the difference? Whenever a mind is taken over, the person tends to. It depends. Controlling the mind can mean different things depending on the method. Controlling the body, however, can also be done, though it could end up being quite painful for the one being controlled if the body instead of the mind is the one being controlled. Though he doesn't seem to have any discomfort, so it's most likely something attacking the mind. But I don't think we have anything to worry about. With Deku just saying, huh, okay, as he trusts his anti-venom's judgment on this, and doesn't actually question why. Though once it starts up, immediately Shinso starts to insult his classmates and Toga, who seems a bit crazy and a bit off, and who seems to have a bit of an aggressive side for a hero like that Bakugo guy. But Deku just says, "You really shouldn't talk about people like that." With Shinso smirking, He's quickly realizing that it didn't work, saying, "What? How?" With President Mike stating that, "Huh? Was something supposed to happen?" Aizawa stated uh, that Izuku isn't affected by his quirk, stating Shinso's quirk is brainwashed, that taking over somebody's body could be quite useful in restraining villains. Also remarking that UA's entrance exams is a little unfair to those without physical quirks. So there is that. But then remarks that uh, Deku's quirk actually seems to give him a form of mental resistance to those types of quirks, which Anti-Venom tells Deku, yes, it's the remnants of the soul of the Mind Stone that's within me. Those remnants gives me mental blocks that keeps others from interfering with our minds. With Deku just smirking, saying, "Well, that's great. Perfect for us, right?" With him stating, "Yes, like, very much so." So, without shooting up, Deku full cowls and blitzes towards him, saying, "If you were facing anybody else, you would have definitely won. But sorry," as he punches Shinso hard enough to send him flying out of bounds. Once that happens and Shinso walks away, he's with all sorry, which Deku then tells him, "I meant it. You really deserve to be a hero for not giving in so easily." Some people, I would imagine some people had some less than pleasant things to say about your quirk. But the fact that you worked so hard to get here and still strive to be and continue to strive to be a hero, that's something I can really admire. He just smirks, saying, "Thanks." With his classmates doing the same as in canon, with the heroes remarking that he should really be in the hero course. He smirks and walks back. Though, after this, the same thing happens as in canon with the matches, though until the beginning match of Tokiyami versus Momo, where Momo is having trouble holding it together. At the which Sleeper says, "I finally understand what this feeling is. We're about to spawn, though unlike normal, we're about to spawn two symbiotes." He then says, "What are we going to do?" Sleeper says that there is somebody in her class that could be compatible with the spawn, but they still need to find another. So at this, though Deku is nearby and hearing their surface thoughts goes by, checking on them, stating that they should probably go tell Midnight, which Anti-Venom uses his telepathic abilities to uh, tell Midnight, which she gives an announcement that there seems to be something going on and that they'll be taking a short break to address it. Which Payback is stating, "What's going on?" Once they get there, they spawn. Payback realizes what's happening, and with Sleeper remarking to get Hakakure into the waiting room while while they figure out what to do with the second spawn, which Deku then remembered something, and Anti-Venom, knowing what he's thinking, states, "I think that's a good idea, and given the person he is, it would be suitable." So he hurries up and finds Shinso, grabs him without any warning, and runs off with him with his classmates stating, "Hey, what are you doing?" as he hurries and brings him into the room before the spawn is about to begin, which they which Hakagure is now there wondering what's going on. At the and at this time, Momo throws up two masses. One of them is a pink and black mass, and the other is a purple and black one. The pink one went to Hakagure, bonding to her, completely covering her body. The pink portion of it became long hair looking features, and Hakagure wasn't sure what just happened, but he feels incredible. As for the black one, uh, Deku just grabbed Shinso and just put him on top of it, and it quickly bonded the Shinso with him saying, "What the hell is this? Hey, hey, what are you doing?" As it bonded to him. Now the abilities are similar with the uh, ability to act as a chem lab like Sleeper does, though with the addition of some of Momo's creation power, though to a lesser extent, like since it's a lot of knowing the composition of things, so it might be trickier for them to use it. Though once everything calmed down, with them fully suited up, Momo was able to breathe a bit easier, though felt really weak along with Sleeper. Which then Midnight asked if she was okay to continue with the match. Momo stated yes, I'm fine. And then Midnight and Payback told Zuko to explain to Hagakure and Shinso what just happened, and that they're going to talk about him bringing Shinso in here later. Which is once they left, she does still lose due to her weakened state from spawning, though afterwards, her and Sleeper begin to talk, and apparently the quirk gene that continues with evolution throughout the continuous parenting and offspring of quirk humans and such, combining different quirks and everything. He explains to them that they're bonded to a symbiote now, a life form that can amplify your own abilities, including quirks, as well as carry on traits from past hosts. Though they understand and revealed their faces. Shinso was kind of looking at his hands, trying to get a grasp on what's happening. As for when it uncovered Hakakure, we saw an actual face, brown hair, brown eyes, and actual face, which they're just stunned at this. This is partially to do with Sleeper's ability to see something that doesn't show up on any technology or by the naked eye. He has the ability to see something that should be, in all purposes, invisible. That feature passed down to its spawn in combination with her invisibility quirk has allowed her to be able to fully control her invisibility to turn it off and on. But she decided to actually be seen, though she noticed that her hair is a little bit frizzy, and then quickly covers it up with the symbiote being embarrassed. Though Shinso did ask why did he do this, he just remarked that out of everybody who who's trying to be a hero, you did get kind of a rough deal. But now with this, you I know you would be a great hero even without it, but you can be even a better hero with it. Which is when the symbiotes that bonded to them chimed in, stating that, so what exactly should we be called? They thought about it, and seeing as now they about Hagakure, hope I'm saying that right, can now control her invisibility, along with the same being said with her symbiote, they're going with cloak, as in the term of a cloaking device turning invisible. As for Shinso, he just smirks, saying, I think Blackout is a good name for you. Which the symbiotes just smirk, being happy with their names. As they leave, everything continues pretty simple, similar as in canon, and with Abari, she didn't know since uh, Screen could be affected by electricity. They focused on their attack and defense mainly with her plant hair, using it to defend and then go after Kaminari to grab him after being dummified from overdoing it. Though after that, she gets kind of woozy when she gets to her classmates. At this time, Tetsu and Kendo are worried about her, which is then when she ended up speeding up to symbiotes as well, for the feeling that they had were that was a modified spawning. Instead of spawning one symbiote, it was twins. Since Tetsu and Kendo were the closest, they ended up bonding to them. Color scheme wise, the one that bonded to Tetsu ended up with a yellow and silver uh, color scheme. As for Abari, it was a combination between yellow and her own hair color, which was orange, I guess. I think. Or is it kind of a light brown? I don't know. I had to look at her character design to be sure, but it's kind of like a orange brown, I guess. After that, Screen popped out, calming everybody in their class down, stating that apparently she was going through a modified spawning cycle, which is why she didn't recognize it off the bat. After some discussion with one another, and given the first round were already over, and Tetsu wasn't going ahead in the competition, the symbiotes that were bonded to them, the one that bonded to Tetsu, he decided to go with a name that would be perfect to match with his quirk, calling him Titanium. As for Kendo, she wasn't really sure, and asked her symbiote what kind of things they can do now, which then the symbiote emerged to tendrils from their back, with the ends forming giant fists, remarking that this is what they gained from their power, from Kendo's power, as well as it looking like a tendril coming out of her hair, making another fist, stating that using her hair like this is now possible in combination with me, due to the combination of me remaining trait genetic memory from a Barai and your quirk. So basically, she can make freaking symbiote fist hair now. So there's that. And she decides to name the symbiote bonded to her in a manner that resembles the one that spawned her Scream, calling her Shriek. Though after the first round ended, and with Toga taking, who did take Hachime's place, ended up going against Ida in the first round, she just, right when he went to her shift roll burst to just snag her and toss her out, She used the tendril to grab his leg, then full on flipped, throwing him clean out of the ring. Which he was frustrated with, though, just figured that it was just something he needs to get faster, as faster than an enemy could properly react, even those symbiotes, if he wants to stand on beside them, being determined to live up to his family name. Now that has been the first round completed of the UA final, the tournament of the sports festival, and this is where we'll be ending it off. In total, there have been 4 symbiotes, basically 2 sets of twin symbiotes that have now been spawned, who have now gone to Hagakure, being named Cloak, Shinso, Blackout, Tetsu Tetsu's Titanium, and Kendo's Shriek. Hope you enjoyed this part of the What If. The remaining part and of the tournament, and I'm guessing what's left of the sorry, and what's left of the I guess the Stain arc, which will have some surprises. I've actually hold off on some things with Stain because I want to start off the next part with what Stain's been up to, and it will have some surprises with his interaction with the League of Villains and such. So I do hope you enjoyed. This was part 4 of What If Deku Had Anti-Venom, and hope to see you later.